All right, this is part 2 of module 3. Let me share my screen. All right. Yep. So let's get going. Let's continue on. So it might seem like this is conflicting information because on one hand, I showed you the data that says that you should not eat the majority of your calories later in the day. And then on the other hand, I said, however, breakfast isn't all that important. It's not. Um, we know that eating a late lunch and late dinner is not good. We know that. But if you eat a breakfast too soon, the body, remember the biological clocks. So, I mean, you say you get up at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning and you eat. Well, the clocks are still set to their setting that says store calories. So just getting up and eating early in the day, it's still dark and your clocks are still set up. That's not good. You're still setting to store. Research has shown that. Research has shown, oh, gotta get my pen here, that subjects who delayed breakfast until 10 a.m., they missed the morning release of glucose and insulin. So we don't need to get into this right now, but when insulin is released, insulin is what we call lipogenic. When insulin is released, you're going to store fat, okay? And so we don't want to be dumping a bunch of insulin into our system. When these people delayed breakfast a little bit, they didn't have that spike in insulin that is normally seen in the morning. Additionally, by skipping breakfast, you allow the body to remain in a fasted state. And there's benefits of being in this fasted state. There's some data that shows that consistent fasting will favorably impact the body's biological clocks, which we've discussed is extremely important. The other thing, the benefit of skipping breakfast is now we're reducing the number of meals that we're eating, which is actually beneficial. How many times do you think you can pet a bear and get away with it? Think about this. Let's say you go out and you're at the zoo and the bear is right up next to the gate and there's a little spot in the gate and you put your hand in there and you pet that bear and you do it once and you're like, oh, that was kind of fun. I pet the bear. It was furry, nice little bear. It didn't bite my hand off. And we'll do it again. You pet the bear the second time. The bear's getting a little irritated, but you got away with it again. How many times are you going to do that before the bear bites your freaking hand off? If you struggle with eating, how many times can you present yourself to the dinner table and get away with it? And what I mean by get away with it is get away with not overindulging. How many times are you going to do that? Maybe you eat breakfast in the morning and you're like, yes, I did good. I didn't overeat. And then you go to lunch table and you sit down and you're like, okay, I can do it. I can do it. Oh, good. I didn't overeat. And then you have an afternoon snack at the dinner table and you're like, all right, I'm just gonna have a little bit extra. I'm hungry. And then dinner, you're like, screw it. And you stuff your face. This is why the concept of intermittent fasting, which is kind of where we're going here, is brought up. Breakfast, the reality is breakfast is easy to skip. It's easy to skip. Dinner is virtually impossible to skip. I've never met someone who's successfully been able to remove dinner for their life, for throughout the rest of their life. It doesn't happen. And so I wouldn't recommend it. Ideally, would you eat breakfast and lunch and skip dinner for the rest of your life? Yeah, you'll never do it. It will never be successful. So I don't recommend it because it's just not going to be successful. And so breakfast is very easy to skip. But before we get into that, we have to understand that it used to be back in my bodybuilding days, it was all about 6 meals a day. You have to eat 6 meals a day. The reason why is in the 60s, there was some data that showed an inverse relationship between eating frequency and fat. What do we mean when we say this? Meaning it showed, if we looked at eating frequency and fat, it showed that people that ate more often had a reduced amount of body fat. But again, guys, this is a relationship. And as I said before, a relationship, nutrition research, if you're looking at relationships, I wouldn't even read that research. When we look at randomized controlled trials, it shows exactly the opposite. But this was perpetuated. I remember reading Muscle and Fiction magazine once, and I hope you caught my pun there. And it said, no matter how much you ate at the last meal, the most important thing you can do is to eat every 3 hours to keep your metabolism ramped up. That's bogus. But that's really what we all said. If we actually look at the data, though, the data shows, so we know since the 80s, our country has gotten really, really big. This paper says, what they asked the question, is it mainly because we're eating more often, or is it because our portion sizes have gotten bigger? Now, you have to, in the paper, they said, of course, both played a role. We know our portion sizes have gotten bigger. We know we're eating more often, but they said which one is more important. And they found the most important thing that dictated our huge size in our country is the fact that we're just eating more often. Snacking is in, right? Snack this. No, snacking doesn't help with weight loss. There's not data to prove that. There's actually data that says the opposite. This paper said, okay, we're going to have people eat whatever they want. They'll have meals. The only difference is one group gets to snack, the other group isn't snacking. The gray area shows the amount of calories from the meal, and then this white bar shows the added calories from snacking. And this doesn't surprise me. I hope it doesn't surprise you. The group that snacked just ate more calories, and all their calories came from snacking. That's stupid. And so, yeah, eating frequency, eating too often, that actually leads to weight gain. Let's look at a randomized controlled trial. In this study, they gave people either 2 meals a day or 6 meals a day. They ate the same amount of calories, same calories. It was just either 2 meals a day or 6 meals a day, same calories. And they did this for a few weeks to see which one promoted more weight loss. I apologize, it's kind of fuzzy. This is change in weight. The group that ate 6 meals a day lost about 2 kilograms. The group that ate 2 meals a day lost about 4 kilograms. They doubled the amount of weight loss, doubled it. All of these other outcomes, I'm not bringing up in purpose of this class because they're not weight loss, but they're all their health outcomes. And I'll just make the note that all of the other health outcomes were better when they ate 2 meals a day versus 6. Here's a review article that says the same thing. It says that you don't have to eat 6 meals a day. And they actually make a note that if you eat more often, it could have negative health effects. And I'm going to skip the words. You can read this. You can pause it, but that's what they found. And then another review article said the same exact thing. And so this data is very clear that you don't have to eat 6 meals a day. And so that's why now today we have this concept of intermittent fasting or time restricted feeding that's really important, or that's become really hot. Let's define some terms. Intermittent fasting, that's when you say Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm not eating anything. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm not eating anything. But on the other days of the week, I'm going to eat whatever I want. That's intermittent fasting. The data has shown that that's really hard to stick to. Most people quit that. And that's why time restricted feeding is now kind of the most popular. Time restricted feeding is much easier. And that's really what I'm advising here with this program. Time restricted feeding is where you're eating only during a certain time period. So you're fasting for, let's say, this is what I'm recommending, so I'll just bring that up. You're eating between noon and 6, but you're not eating between 6 and noon. So it's time restricted feeding. You're not counting your calories between noon and 6 though. That's the benefit. This has been shown to be pretty effective because you don't have to count your calories, and then you have this fasting window. A 2015 review paper asked, can this be an effective way for losing weight? There was 40 studies that they reviewed. 37 of the 40 found that it was very effective. That's really good. There's been multiple other review papers, I have the references in the book, that have shown the same thing, that time restricted eating is effective mode of weight loss. I already said why. Adhering to daily caloric restriction is very hard. The data shows that after a month of trying to count your calories and say remove 500 calories every day, people quit. It's so difficult to do. This method of dieting has been shown to produce weight loss, and you're not even reducing calories because of the fasting period. Okay, and so it's much easier to do. One of the problems, though, with this method of eating is that some people, so let's say that they're not eating breakfast, they eat a lunch, but they stuff their face at dinner. The people that I've talked to that have said, I've tried time restricted eating and I'm not losing weight. And I say, well, let's talk about when you're eating. And they're eating at 7:30, 6:30 at night, and they're eating like 2,000 calories. That goes against everything we just said with our biological clocks. So really, the most important meal of the day for weight loss is not breakfast, it's lunch. Lunch should be your meal of the day. If lunch is at noon for you, assuming you fasted before then, you eat at noon, and that should be the majority of your calories. And then dinner should be sensible, eat it with your family, but definitely don't gorge yourself. But if we take all of this information, and I hope you're following this, because it all comes down to a window of opportunity to eat. It's kind of what I'm calling it, the window of opportunity to eat. For example, let's say you go to sleep at 10 p.m. and you get up at 6 a.m. Your first meal would be around noon. This meal should contain most of your calories. Okay, this is the most important, because then the meal should get smaller. Snack around 3 p.m. or really whenever you're hungry. That 3 p.m. is not set in stone. I'm just giving an example. You don't have to only eat at noon and then dinner, but eat your first meal around noon and then snack when you're hungry. Don't stuff your face, but snack when you're hungry. Eat dinner with your family at a reasonable time. And I say reasonable because hopefully you're not eating massive dinners at 8 o'clock at night, 6 p.m., something like that. So eat dinner with your family. And I wouldn't eat after dinner. Now, everyone's different. I set this program up for you to tailor. If you have a snack after dinner, a small snack, it probably is not the end of the world, but definitely don't eat within 2 hours of bedtime. There's a lot of data that shows that within 2 hours of bedtime is really when you're storing the most. And by bedtime, meaning your normal bedtime. Everyone has a normal bedtime. If I normally go to bed at 10, I definitely don't want to eat after 8. Hopefully not after dinner, but definitely not after 8. Okay, so within 2 hours, a lot of data shows that we should not be doing that. I'm going to bring this all together. So take home message, late night snacking, horrible for fat loss. Don't eat within 2 hours of before bedtime. Skip breakfast, make lunch the most important meal of the day, and ensure that your lunch is before 3 p.m. That's because of the data that we showed from the Mediterranean countries. If they ate their main meal after 3, they gain weight. So your lunch should probably be around noon. And if your lunch was at 11, that would be fine too. 11 to noon, you can shift everything, but noon's usually lunchtime for people. Skipping breakfast allows for daily mini fasts that really increase fat burning, and that's why skipping breakfast is beneficial. So I put together, this is in your 24-hour weight loss planner. This is part of your planner to help you really plan when you're going to eat. And so this is on your daily planner. So you have your time here on the left. You have the meals, you can plot what you're going to eat. This is just a to-do list because it's a planner. And here's your schedule appointments. It has nothing to do with eating. That's your to-do list. But the gray shaded area are areas where you probably shouldn't eat. Notice that I did leave it open to where you can shift this a little bit. But this really is your window of opportunity to eat. So you would put in here what you're going to have for lunch. I don't know what you eat for lunch. Let's say you have some chicken or something, chicken and rice, whatever. And then maybe you can have a snack in here and then your dinner, but it's within that window of opportunity. At this point, if you wanted, you could start doing this. You may want to wait before you go through all the modules so that you can go through all the modules in the book and get kind of all the other components on what you should be eating and that kind of thing. But this is where we come up with this time period. And so if something wasn't clear in this presentation, please send me an email. I'm going to be responding to emails, any questions that people have. And take the quiz at the end of the module. And I'll see you again for module 4.